Good evening, Divine Mercy Radio. Cody had to leave, and so I'm taking over. My name's Michael Lager. I'm the assistant director here. Happy to be here with you this evening to close us out with 2 more hours. Just in case the radio didn't tell you, I'm going to let you all know, and I'm really proud of this. And most of these stations got here before I started working here, but it has been amazing just to see how far we have grown as a station from the beginning station up to now what we have. So you're listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, 89.1 KGOH Colby, and the newest station, and that was a trivia question earlier today, 107.3 K297 AI Hill City. The AI does not mean artificial intelligence. It's just letters in this case. And that Hill City station is actually a translator station. So it's kind of a cool concept. So it just takes what we play here on KMDG and buffs it out to Hill City for a bigger signal in that area. So thank you to our Hill City listeners for supporting us where you're at right now. All right, coming up, we have Father Don Zimmerman. He is with us to talk about boots, blisters, and blessings on the Camino de Santiago. And there's been some movies made about this. There's been so many trips. Father Andy Hammocky and some Fort Hays Tigers took a trip there a year or two ago. And everyone that I have talked to that has gone on this trip has just said that it's been a huge blessing for them. But before we get that, we have our first trivia question of the hour. Now, we are in our evening segment of the Carryathon on this Wednesday, so that means that it's children's trivia time. So if you are 16 years and under, you can answer and call in on your parents' phone, or maybe you have a phone as well. So the first question of this hour, or if Father Don's comfortable, I'll let him read it off. Would you be all right with that?
Sure.
All right. Now, like Cody says, make sure you don't read the answer. He's done that once or twice before. So just that 4 p.m. question right there.
Okay. Which of these groups would your guardian angel be a part of? Which of these 3 groups would your guardian angel be a part of? A, angels. B, powers. C, seraphim. D, archangels.
And one more time, Father. One more time for them.
Which of these groups would your guardian angel be a part of? Angels, powers, seraphim, or archangels?
Perfect. So all of those are different angel groups. But which one does your guardian angel belong to? Call in at 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. We're looking forward to it. All righty, now to the feature of this hour, Father Don Zimmerman. Father Don Zimmerman was born and reared on a farm outside of Collier, Kansas. St. Michael's Parish was where he received the sacraments, including ordination to the priesthood on June 2nd, 1973. He has served in the St. Mary's Parish of Salina for 2.5 years before being made a pastor in Aurora, Kansas. There were later assignments in Canopolis, Belleville, Hayes Immaculate Heart of Mary Parish, St. Thomas More in Manhattan, Sacred Heart Cathedral, Abilene, and Clay Center, all in Kansas. He has been a fully retired as a pastor since July of 2021. Since that time, he has been quite active with filling in with neighboring parishes and where he's currently at. After leaving Immaculate Heart of Mary in Hayes, he was allowed to take a sabbatical on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle for 10 weeks. Having traveled 12,000 miles at that time seeing relatives and friends, he served St. Thomas More for 13 years. Most recently, he completed a religious pilgrimage on the Camino in Spain. So, Father Don, very accomplished. Sounds like you've had a very great priesthood and a very gift to us in the Salina Diocese. But just to start us off, what is the Camino de Santiago, and when did you go, and with who?
Okay. Well, as you may have noticed, Michael is so broken up about this whole thing that he's having trouble getting through it. so, so, but some of that stuff that just gets into the,
Oh yes.
yeah, I've
Oh
had that
yes.
trouble myself lots of times. Um, well, as you had said just a little bit earlier, we've had some priests in our diocese that have done this, and I always thought it really quite um, exciting to consider. And I knew about this sometime before, especially having seen the movie and uh, called The Way. Um, and just a year ago, there were some folks that I met up, and and I was kind of resigned to the fact of doing, a week, maybe 2 weeks worth of walking. But the people that I planned this with wanted to do the whole enchilada, and that, from the Pyrenees Mountains all the way through upper Spain, and so that's what we did.
I mean,
Yeah.
so there's shorter versions? Are you saying there's different kind of?
There's a lot of different. There's
Okay.
even versions up from Porto, Portugal, that goes up along the coast to Portugal to St. James de Compostela. There's Primitivo. There's about 12 to 14 other trails. And so this one is actually the longest of them all. And so I wasn't quite ready to do that. So I had to do a lot of different things to get there. So, and as the particular, as some of the folks know about the way or the Camino, it's been around since the ninth century. So it goes through a lot of different villages that have been hosting a lot of different pilgrims over all these centuries.
So a pretty rich tradition there
Very
with the
much so.
Camino.
Very
Okay.
much so.
So you're gearing up to go on this massive walk, and like you said, having to prepare yourself physically just to do this.
Yeah.
So what, you talked about a little bit with other priests and dioceses, but would you say there's anything in particular that really, kind of sets you over the edge to inspire you to go on this journey?
Well, this was the 2025 was the year of pilgrimage, the Jubilee year.
Okay.
And of course, many people would make the journey to Rome or through the Holy Doors. We've had those designated churches throughout our diocese, and so while those are very worthwhile endeavors, this was something, again, I thought that would kind of fit into, what my friends and I were looking at doing, and so again, I was just resigned to the fact of doing a much shorter walk, but I knew if we were going to be doing the whole thing, it was going to require something more. So I started actually training for this after the first of the year,
Okay.
for the time that we left at the end of August and returned on October 7th.
Man.
Yeah, it was 37 days worth of walking, 2 days of off time in some of the major cities like Burgos and Leon. So I'm glad. I was very happy to be a part of that. I don't think I'd want to do something like that again. It was very hard on the body.
Yeah.
Very hard on the body.
When I was younger, I was in Boy Scouts, and there's this camp called Philmont. And
Yes.
so
Oh,
we went
yeah.
on a 50-mile hike,
Oh,
and
and you had full packs too.
yeah, about 40 to 50 pound packs.
Oh yeah, that's totally different. Than,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a pack with my my clothing and toiletries. Food was at the end of the day.
Okay.
In the what we call albergues, the hostels
Okay.
with bunk beds. I've never,
Yeah.
I was in the seminary the last time I'd done a bunk bed. I don't
Yep.
want to do a bunk bed again.
Yeah.
It was just, but I got accustomed to it. It just had to.
Yeah.
With common showers. I mean, there were cubicles in terms of showers, commodes, and things of this nature. And a lot of places they were gender. There were no gender differences, and so Yeah, that was a bit hard to get accustomed to, but hey, after a week or so, you just get accustomed to it. I
Yeah,
mean, there was lots of modesty with all of that, of course, but um, again, having lived alone for a long time, that was a difficult thing to get accustomed to.
I believe that. So you said you started prepping after the first of the year.
Right?
Now,
Yeah.
obviously, Kansas is known for its mountains and its very, rolling hills and highs and low, and
Yeah.
no, we're a plain. So does Camino have a lot of mountains
Oh my
that you were
gosh.
walking?
Oh my gosh.
So
Yes.
how do you prep for that being in
Well,
Kansas?
in the Manhattan area, in the Flint Hills, there are some hills, not as high as the Pyrenees. Um, so there's a gentleman that lives right around the corner from me in Manhattan, and so we had done some 10 miles and 13-mile walks, and um, and those were through the Flint Hills on the Kanza Prairie. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful walks, and we would do that, and then there were some rough places, but doing this on the Camino, it was every day. Every
Yeah.
day there was a hill, there was a descent, and then there's another hill, and oftentimes we talk to fellow peregrinos or pilgrims, and um, because a hill could be very, very taxing, and say, well, it's going to get better just around the corner. That was one of those famous expressions. It'll get better around the corner. Well, generally it wasn't, but it was an element of providing hope and encouragement.
Yeah, you got to
So
hold on to something while you're while
you
you're
had to.
climbing that.
And so, yeah, it was, while the training was significant, that's one of the things, if anybody was going to do something like this, you just don't travel to some place and think you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, I would not recommend that. The training really helped me a great deal. So I lost weight. I lost weight in the training, and then I lost some more weight. Um, and and I lost hair too. And I don't know how that happened, but I know how the weight loss, but I'm sure some of the weight will come back, and I'm pretty sure the hair is not going to come back. But it's
Unfortunately.
okay. Yeah, but it was the training was very, very significant, and just the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
So
So physically, obviously, you have to prepare, and obviously, for anyone who has seen the movie The Way, they talk about how a lot of people that go on this might not even be, they might be an atheist and not even
correct,
religious. There's a
right?
lot of, it's not just a religious pilgrimage, but how do you prepare spiritually for a journey? We've talked about the physicality of it, obviously,
Oh yes,
but you're in Europe, which just has such a rich Catholic history. How do you prep spiritually for an event like this?
yeah, yeah. That's a good question. It's the very first night that we were on the hike, on the pilgrimage. That very question went around. What are the reasons for each of you doing this? And we heard all kinds of different responses, and many of them were not religious necessarily. They weren't spiritual. They were just, some people just like walking. It's just and being in a albergue or in a hostel, it's not as expensive as a hotel, and so it's kind of a vacation. Some people do this as a way to get away from work and whatnot. Um, my response to that question was, I just wanted to get closer to God, and a lot of different ways that um, through the Flint Hills of eastern Kansas. Um, there's a lot of different ways there, in all of the environments to get in touch with the spiritual. And it's that way and on the Camino. It's that and even more, actually. Um, and so, of course, then you have the very ancient cathedrals and
Yeah.
churches and the saints that have come from there and that part of the world. Is even the saint of the day, Francis Xavier, came from that part of the world. And And so to be in touch with those kinds of folks, it's just pretty special.
Amazing. All right. Well, I see that we don't have a trivia winner yet. So I'm going to go ahead and reread that question just really quickly here and see if we can get somebody on this. So, as we know, there's different choirs of angels. So the question is, which of these choir of angel groups would your guardian angel be a part of? Would it be A, just a group of angels? Would it be B, the group of the choir of powers? Would it be C, the choir of seraphim? Or D, the choir of archangels? Which of these groups of angels would your guardian angel be a part of? We all have a guardian angel that God has given to light and guard us. Which group did they come from? Was it the choir of angels, the choir of powers, the choir of seraphim, or the choir of archangels? So if you have that, call in at 785 621 4110. 785 621 4110. You're listening to Divine Mercy Radio's 2025 Fall Carathon Light in the Darkness. We're here with Father Don Zimmerman. If you're just tuning in, talking about the Camino de Santiago. So we've talked a little bit about the prepping for it spiritually, the reasons for going there, especially the physicality of the journey, and such a journey as this. And I think I went to Poland recently, and I thought one of the beautiful things was the churches. You talked about a cathedral that you saw there.
Yeah.
Did you get to celebrate Mass while you were there? And what was that like?
I was able to concelebrate about 3 or 4 times, and be able to preside. I was not able to do that. Was not possible. And the most special place was in St. James de Compostela itself, and that was I was standing right behind the celebrant when they lit up the Boda Fumero, and it's that huge censer that they swing, and it's quite an event to witness that. And this is just right there where the remains of St. James the Apostle is. So that was quite a special opportunity to be right there with there were that's but 6, 7 other fellow priests from different parts of the world, actually, from Australia, Ireland, it's Poland, and so yeah, and so you got a sense of that just walking the Camino, how universal it is, because you got people from all over that's basically doing this on their own time, own schedule, college age kids, that are in their gap year, and finding out what they want to do, after they get back home, and running into folks that we ran into a couple that had met on a Camino a couple of years ago, and they ended up getting married. And so they were doing this as their anniversary gift to each other. So,
amazing.
So many different, really, really neat stories like that.
That's so awesome. Just meeting people, being connected in faith, and all of that. Just
it was, and I did carry in my pack a chalice that I used to carry on my motorcycle and would have Mass at the various different places, and with friends, and and so whether it's out at Lakeside or on a park bench or whatever, in a camper, and so it was that same chalice that I carried. It was a pewter chalice with a cross on it, and so I carried that thing, and I wondered, how many times am I going to use this? And I actually used it once. And it was actually hard to find time to even get my prayers in day after day. However, just being on the walk was a prayer in itself. Just being out there. always ended up in walking with some folks, talking, questions. Some folks didn't know that I was a priest, but when they did, then they had all kinds of questions. Yeah, and I never did walk with my clerics as such,
Yeah.
And so, but there was, I had fallen one day because it was downhill most of the
Oh,
day,
yeah.
and I've fallen twice. And the second time, I messed up my arm. And there was a lady that was a naval commander, and she was with two other ladies and two gentlemen. And she ended up bandaging me up. And then she found out I was a priest. And so it changed everything. It was really quite significant for her. But just being able to be of service, in that way.
So kind of on that topic, you mentioned falling twice,
Yeah.
During this, hike, what did you find to be the most difficult part? Was there a certain stretch where it just kind of got to you? Was the whole thing just kind of difficult? Was there a certain road? Was there just a day that just weren't doing well? What would you say is the most difficult part of the journey?
Well, the Pyrenees Mountains are high, they're cold, it was wet. And I kind of anticipated that it would get better after that with the peaks, but not so. It wasn't so. So we got accustomed to the fact that there was, if you were staying in the valley overnight, you're going to have to climb the next day. Or if you were on sort of a peak, you were going to have to descend the next day at some point in time. That's just the way the terrain was. But there was one day, and this is when we were in Samos, that we stayed at a monastery, a Benedictine monastery. And I got up that morning and I didn't feel quite well. And that was one of the roughest times out of a village, because then I told my fellow hiker, Brad, that I was experiencing vertigo. And that was the first and the last day that I did experience it. But that was a rough day because we had gone through some really rough patches as well in the dark of the morning and then through the day. And so after 10 miles hike, he says, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I said, I didn't want to trouble him, I just, so we ended up in staying, and this is a place called Saria, and had a nice meal, good rest that afternoon, because one of the things that Father Dan Sheets had asked me, "Can you tell me, Don, in 4 words what the Camino is like?" And I'd say, "Well, Father Dan, I can tell you in 3. It was more than expected." More than expected. And I tell you, that was because of sleep, because I didn't get as much sleep as I really needed, because one of the companies snored a lot.
Oh.
And so I was very restful. I mean, I didn't get very restful sleep. And so this particular night, I got good rest. And so the next morning, boom, it was fine again, but there were various different times in which I just, oh God, help me, help me. And it was just one of those,
Yeah.
because I physically and emotionally, I was just getting spent. Just really, it was, and then when I got home, just oftentimes the adjusting to the time change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be okay after 2 or 3 days. Not this time. It took me several weeks. I didn't know my body was just really worn that much. So it, but yeah, just kept going. You get up in the morning by 6:30. Most often, I was out on the trail. It was, of course, dark.
Yeah.
For an hour or an hour and a half, and then you hiked 12 to 15 miles a day, and kept that up. Some days it was 18 miles. It was. So, and I did not get a blister.
Hey, there you go.
Did not get a blister.
Had the right equipment on. So did you buy new hike? Do they recommend boots or shoes or For footwear, what do they recommend?
It's another good question. One of the things is that people really don't take the time to find out what kind of shoe they need. So I looked at, there's a company out of Wichita, REI, that I got some hiking boots, and I trained with those. And those dang things wore after 350 miles of training. And I said, I was really concerned that with another 100 miles plus, whether these boots are going to make it. But I did walk 10 miles with my new boots, carried them over, and walked to 473 miles, every day, but they didn't wear as much. Now, the terrain was just as rough or rougher. But, I have a theory about that, Mike.
What's that theory?
Because it was, I knew that people were praying. And now, I knew that there was general candles lit. My sister was lighting candles, and I knew there were other candles that were being lit and stuff. So I knew that that those kinds of things were happening. And so my theory was, I was being lifted up. I don't say that lightly, but I was being lifted up, and so it made a difference just on the getting through it all. But then I looked at my boots. They weren't nearly as worn. It's one of those crazy things.
Yeah. Well, and I think I might be misquoting Mother Angelica, but I'm sure she'd agree with this. But never underestimate the power of prayer.
Absolutely. Never. Because again, regardless of, you ask a question about people who have no faith and this kind of thing that go on. And you see a little bit of that in this movie, The Way, because people can get turned from their agnostic or, their issues with God and be turned towards our God, the Creator, in some way or another. And so that's a beautiful thing to see. I've heard that story in life, in real life there, because there are just people that go there, maybe they just want to lose some weight or take a vacation, but then there's something much more that happens.
You never know when you're going to have that encounter with God. He's always something that I would tell the kids that I teach in confirmation class and taught us to us a few years ago is just God is always knocking at the door of your heart, but you got to let him in. And so you never know when you're going to hear that knock and that he's going to enter into that moment with you. So beautiful.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's whether one does the Camino in Spain. I'm thinking about doing this, like what's called the Kansas Camino.
Okay.
That's out of Wichita.
Yeah.
Goes to Pilsen, honoring the Venerable Emil Kapan. That's the first weekend of June. And that's 60 miles. The first day is 20 miles. And so, I'm thinking about trying to do that.
Yeah.
And because I asked about it last year and it was too late. Registrations was full and this kind of thing. But there's, but on those kinds of pilgrimages and kinds of walks, there's a lot of different things that can be experienced and revealed.
Yeah.
And you never know what to expect.
That's
more
fair.
than expected, actually.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Going to cut in here really quickly. Okay. Did not get an answer or call in for the trivia question. So which of these groups would your guardian angel be a part of? And the answer is the angels. Just the angels. A little bit of kind of a tricky one. I don't know who wrote that one. That was me. Every time you hear Cody complain about the trivia questions, he's complaining to me about it. So, but anyways, moving on to the 4:30 children's trivia question. So, just got out of school. You're at home, maybe doing some homework. Got the either the live stream turned on or the radio turned on. If you're listening in and you're 16 years and under, get ready, because this one's coming straight to you. And we're going to have Father Don read this one again.
Okay, 430 question. Which of these groups is known for being chosen by Jesus? A, the apostles, B, the angels, C, patriarchs, or D, bishops? Again, which of these groups is known for being chosen by Jesus? Apostles, angels, patriarchs, or bishops?
I hear that phone ringing, so that's a good sign. If you don't know the number, 785-621-4110. 785-621-4110. That's the call in and make your pledge or answer that trivia question. And of course, the reason you want to answer those trivia questions is because you will be entered into a drawing for a gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books here in Hayes. Amazing store. I recently bought, within the last year or two, for a wedding, I bought a Sacred Heart and Immaculate Heart photo for the couple that I knew. I bought my Divine Mercy image from them. I bought some baptism gifts from them. They just have an amazing, beautiful store. They can get books in. They can get anything in that they need. Okay. So back. Oh, we already got the winner. Okay. The winner of the trivia is Carter Robin. So which of the groups did Jesus choose directly? That would be the apostles. He called them by name. Very important part in the gospel. Alrighty, getting back to Father Don Zimmerman. So we've talked about the preparation. We've talked about the inspiration to go, spiritual, physical exercise to get there. What about the people that you met there? We heard a little bit about a lady who helped bandage your arm when you fell. We've heard a little bit of some other people. Would you say who stuck out to you more, the people that you traveled with or the people that you met in the towns that you stayed in?
Well, I traveled with a brother's sister. He lives in Florida, and she's in Omaha, Nebraska, and so we started out together. And I've known them for quite some time, and so they wanted to do the whole thing, and then met up with a gentleman later. Again, the one that I trained with, and so. And each one of these folks have various different personality, and so I really come to appreciate each of them in a very special way. On the pilgrimage, just the priests that I met, in the various different churches that Con celebrated with, as well as the people on the trail, because you would run into folks quite often, especially if they stayed in the same albergue or hostel, and so they would have the same 12 to 15 miles or 20 to 25 kilometer type of walk that they were going to do, and so I ended up in coming to appreciate these folks. Again, not everybody knew that I was a priest, and that was just fine. I could, I didn't, but there were there were times in which there was one lady that was really quite insistent upon all kinds of questions, and so walking with her, there was just like one question after another, and it was okay, except I didn't necessarily want to be burdened by all of that. I don't know, that may have been a selfish type of a response, but I'd come to find out she had that kind of personality with everybody, whatever it was, whether it's religion or exercise or food or this kind of thing. Sweet lady, very religious. It was just something that you run across so many different types of folks, and there was a fine young man who was from Australia, He was one in his gap year, and he was gone. Once he got back, he was going to be going into medicine, studying and another young lady that was um, from Utah. She was traveling by herself. These people were solo pilgrims, as you call them, and she was camping. She had no phone. She had no GPS. She just had her pack, sleeping bag, and fine-looking young lady. She was 20-something. She's all alone. She wasn't scared at all. I was just like one of those things like, holy smokes. I don't know as if I would have done that at that age, but there she was, making her way across the Camino de Francais, which is the one we were doing. And she was doing the whole thing.
That is amazing.
It was just absolute. Now, a lot of people are doing section. And so a couple of the guys that, this lady that fixed my arm, when it got down to level ground, I gave him a blessing, and then we met up with the other two guys that they were walking with. They were sitting out in a courtyard at a restaurant, albergue, bar restaurant, having a couple of beers. They were good Irishmen, having a couple of beers.
Yeah.
And so they were, Julie was the one that fixed me up, and Julie was telling them about it. My father gave us a blessing. And Neil, the one that carried my pack down the rest of the hill, this very treacherous hill, carried my pack, and he said, well, I carried his pack. I didn't get a blessing from him. So before we left, I had to give him a blessing. It was, we ran into those guys again. But they were a couple of Dubliners, guys that were scout leaders. They had to go back to work and their families. They had done the walk, some part of the work last year, and they were going to come back this next year and finish it out from Sarria on into St. James de Compostela. And it's from Sarria, that you have to at least go from Sarria, which is 110 kilometers from St. James de Compostela. You have to walk at least 60 plus miles in order to get a certificate. Done the Camino.
The Camino, yeah.
And so there's a lot of people, that would get off the bus. Luggage would be sent ahead, which is fine. There's a lot of different ways of doing the Camino. I even saw some people that was out there with their cardigan sweaters and a nice little, purse around their shoulders and their sneakers. How far they were going to walk, I don't know. But they certainly weren't very serious about it. So you just saw all kinds of different people that were doing that kind of thing. So, but again, it's not that one way is better than the other. Everybody has their purpose. Everybody has their longing and being on the Camino, because you kind of get a sense of that special spirit that exists there for, again, almost 1,000 years.
Wow. So, now, would you say, you mentioned a movie a little bit ago that kind of talks about the Camino. Mm-hmm. Would you say, what is that movie? And then is that pretty realistic to what it's like to go on the Camino?
It pretty much is. It's called The Way. It was produced in 2011. Martin Sheen is the star in that. So it's a story about him and his son. His son started the walk in Pyrenees, and then because of weather, he died. And so father has to come and pick up his belongings, and so there's this. They don't have a very good relationship, for various different reasons, and so he ends up in doing this walk for his son, and so there's these images of son coming to him during the walk. And of course, then you got all these other different peoples that are on this walk for various different reasons again. And it's a very good movie. I would recommend it for family viewing. I don't think there's anything, bad about that. And but the funny thing about it is that when we started out of St. John P. de Port, we got stopped immediately. We just came out of the office. We come on down the hill. We got stopped immediately by a filming crew that was out of Italy. So, and they were filming. And here's this. This was come to find out later after 3 different stops. St. John P. de Port, Roncesvalles, and then in Pamplona, where the city of the running of the bulls, we got stopped 3 times by this filming crew, and come to find out, it was a story about a father and his daughter. His daughter was not in good relationship with her father. She runs away. Is going to do the Camino. He comes running after her with his Italian sports car. So this movie is supposed to come out next year in Italian, of course, called Ben Camino.
Okay.
Ben Camino, and that's the expression that's said all along the trail. You just wish another Ben Camino. That may be the only 2 words that somebody from Japan or China or any other place of the world, maybe the only 2 words they know, but they know Ben Camino.
Okay.
And that's the word you use. And it's just a blessing. It's a wish. Have a good journey.
Fantastic. I'm going to break in here really quick. We have Todd and Lisa Gable have pledged $250. So thank you, Todd and Lisa, for helping support Divine Mercy Radio. With that $250, that actually gets matched with our matching funds, making it a $500 donation. Just like that, our generous supporters have, all before the Carathon, people were donating money, and some people wanted it to be matching funds for you. So if you're sitting on the fence, well, I don't know if I want to donate, I don't know if I can, just know that every time that you donate, it is matched and doubled here at Divine Mercy Radio. And thank you to our listeners. We're a listener-supported station, a nonprofit, which means that we're not pulling in money from advertisements like all your other radio stations. We rely on you and your prayers to keep this station up and running. Also, that $250 donation is going to get them entered into a drawing for the end of the week, and it's going to get them a rechargeable flashlight as well. It's pretty good. If you look at the Carathon video, we have a little bit of a preview of what that'll look like for you on that if you want to go back and watch that. But just know that the $250 level gets you a nice little rechargeable flashlight. Keep it in your car, keep it in your house, keep it on a shelf. You can use it anywhere. I know Nathan has used it throughout the day at his place. Mine sits on my desk here at the station just in case something were to happen. So keep that up. Thank you, Todd and Lisa, for that $250, which is actually $500 because of our donors. All right, getting back to Father Don. So we've talked about the people and what it was like seeing there, a little bit about the movie about it. What about the scenery? We talk about the mountains. What was beautiful to you on this journey?
Well, as there's the Pyrenees Mountains, and then all through Spain, there were, these peaks and then the valleys. And so being at the peaks, you got such a beautiful view of just the whole countryside. And the realization that at one point in time, earlier in the day, or maybe 2 days before that, you were in that valley, and then you made that trek up the mountain. But it's throughout the, the different areas of Spain, like where the vineyards are really quite plentiful, and wine is very good there, but also the beer from various different provinces to another. The beer is a little bit different from place to place, but it's very, very good, especially at the end of the day after having, we always carried a lot of extra water with electrolytes and being in one of those bottles because it just lost a lot of stuff. So you had to keep from cramping up and this kind of thing at night or even during the day. So that helped a lot. So being able to get through the valleys and up to the hills and seeing these vineyards and what was called the Meseta is sort of like the plains area of Spain. There was a lot of wheat straw that was being put up, which indicated there was a lot of wheat that was harvested. And big machinery to have this work done. There are also sunflowers in this area. Olive trees is very big. I did not expect to see olive trees, but they do have that kind of thing. And so while it doesn't seem like through the mountains and hills that there would be that much agriculture, there is. And a lot of cattle, with dairy and pig farms and stuff like that, because you could smell them very easily as you were walking through. In a lot of different places, there were free range, and so you had to watch where you were walking. Sometimes, you were actually walking in, stuff left by the animals, So every place that we went to, and every you had to leave your boots as well as your walking sticks outside the sleeping area, because you never knew what you were going to be carrying into the sleeping area. So concern about bed bugs and things of that nature. And so, and I always used walking sticks. Some people just had one, or but I used both walking sticks all the time because it really helped with my balance, because of the terrain was just really rough in a lot of different places. But at the end of the day, it was always good to get to the albergue and get that first shower, because we only carried just the clothes that we would.
Yeah.
Three changes of clothes. You had to wash about every day or every other day, which meant you were cleaning stuff in the shower, or there was a wash tub in the outside, and then drying racks. Every day you had to do that.
Man,
Every day.
it's a lot. Sounds like a lot of trust, though. You talk about leaving, your shoes and your stick outside, there, and it sounds like there's a lot of trust that you have to, or at least giving up a lot of control on this journey.
There is, yeah. Well, it's like motorcycle riding. I'd put my helmet on the handlebars, and go in the restaurant or this or that, and people would ask me, "Aren't you concerned about?" I said, "No, I don't know. I'm just going to take it. It's just part of the code."
Yeah,
and that's what it is on the Camino. Although my friend Chris took a picture of one of these places where a young lady had stuck a message upon her shoes, and it said, "These are not your shoes." I love it. These are not your shoes. So don't even think about walking away with them.
Amazing. All right. Well, we have just about 10 minutes left. So let's go ahead and kind of tie this all together. You talked about, you lost some weight and unfortunately some hair, but, what did you gain, would you say, spiritually from this journey?
Trust in one's ability. It's one of the things that helped me to get ready for this was just training for like a marathon. And one of was here in St. Mary's for 12 years, and Father Brad Sterrett was associate, and he suggested that we train for a marathon, and so Donetta Robin The lady, associated with this radio. We actually trained for a marathon, and in 1991, and first weekend in December, we did this marathon in Dallas, Texas, called White Rock, and so the principles that we used for training, I used for this walk, and and so just the physical, but the physical is one thing, the mental attitude is another. And so I think that's one of the things about seeing just the level, the reach of the capability of a person. Think even getting up of a day, how can I do this? With God's help, one can get through it, whatever the difficulty might be. Sometimes that might be a medical issue. Sometimes it could be a just emotional issue. But so it's taught me a great deal about that. Never allowing oneself to give up. And so that's not only physically, but also emotionally or spiritually. And that's kind of carried me, through the marathon days, through this walk.
Amazing.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And kind of tying into that too, would you say that has it changed your view in, prepping for the marathon and especially the mentality of it, but your journey as a priest, would you say can you find any correlation between the preparation, the doing it and sticking out between your time as a priest and the Camino? Do you see any relationship between the two of those?
Well, in preparation as a priest, it's been a long time ago since I've been a priest now for 52 years. But I can remember, it's just like, it was, didn't think that it would ever end, with the preparation. I was just so ready to get into a parish. And so with this, it was like, I'll be very happy to get this done, to get this Camino behind me and get home where I'll have, the comfort of, my own bed, and it's going to be quiet.
Yeah.
Food was never a problem. It's just, and people, it was just, whether I wanted to be alone or with people, that always was a blessing one way or the other. It's just that sometimes, just having some time to recover. So knowing that I'd be able to get back home to do that. So I said, oh my God, just, one more week as we were clearing out our last 100 kilometers, one more week of walking. And so you had to count it down. And so, this is one of the things that we had everyone gets a Camino passport.
Now, if you look on Facebook, what we're going to do is go ahead. We've taken pictures of Father's Camino passport and posted it on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook right now, you can find that post and the pictures that have been uploaded there. So, but go ahead, Father, please.
Well, it's just an indication of all the places we stayed. And it's kind of and every one of those stamps has a different image. And it's relative to the albergue or hostel, relative to the bar, /restaurant. And they're always, it's one and the same thing. And some places just had along the trail, people were just there providing a stamp. So I was able to get both sides full and then an additional page as well, because I ran out of space.
Oh my.
And so it was, yeah, I don't know. Next year at this time probably won't mean that much, So, I'll forget about it, and that's, but hey,
it's something to look back on. It's
something to look back on, yeah. Yeah, so I appreciate Nathan taking the pictures of it. So
yeah,
and making it possible. But it's something that everyone ends up with. And if one is doing the whole thing, or if you're doing a 60 plus mile Camino, you get a stamp. And you may be looking for extra stamps, but they're looking for that stamp at the end of the Camino,
Yeah.
and they search it through and seeing just how far one has come, and then everybody gets the same kind of certificate. You know, it doesn't make any difference how
Yeah.
long you've walked. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Okay. Well, just a few minutes left. What is one essential item, maybe one spiritual, whether it's prayer or something you should bring, and one practical? You talked about the shoes, so if you want to say the shoes again, that's completely fine. But what would be one essential item, one spiritual and one practical to take with you if somebody was going to go on the Camino? What should they be looking for?
Take something to write your thoughts. Not only your thoughts, but your prayers, things of this nature, because one will be inspired. And so journaling through the time, that would be a practical thing that I would suggest. And another spiritual is just being open, being open to what God may reveal, because the scenery, the churches, the cathedrals, the everything, just opens you up to something that is truly beyond our imagining.
Fantastic. All right, Father, and would you please finish us in this hour with your priestly blessing?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this, Michael, for making this possible.
We love having priests on, and just being able to tell stories like this just means so much to us. So, I'm so glad we could set this up with having you come in.
Absolutely. Lord God, we are grateful in the many gifts of life that you have granted to us, for all of not only the beginning of creation, but through the gift of your Son. Help us continuously long and wait and prepare for his coming once again, as he's revealed, as St. Bernard says, even in the sacraments day by day. Help us to be aware of these great blessings. Help us to be ever, ever grateful for that which is bestowed upon us. And blessings upon the hearers and listeners, and all those that are about the support of this radio station, and those across the diocese. We pray blessings upon them and their families and all that they do. This we pray in Jesus' name, in the power of God's Holy Spirit, who lives and reigns forever and ever.
Amen. Amazing. Thank you, Father, for that beautiful hour. Again, if you want to see his passport, you can go look on Facebook and find it there. And we have photos of all the stamps and even an itinerary of all the different stops in the route that he took on his journey on the Camino. Amazing. Thank you, Father, again.